Aloha kako. My name is Monica Magallanes, and today I will be presenting on my capstone pilot proposal project. It is an educational pilot project based on epidemiological studies of poverty-stricken Native Hawaiian food bank recipients. My pilot project is based around the question, how effective is an educational program in increasing acceptance and knowledge of produce foreign to a poverty-stricken Native Hawaiian community at a local food bank to decrease the leftover unwanted foreign produce. And this was brainstormed during my MSN program with Dr. Patty, as she had us come up with a policy paper that basically just had us look at what sort of changes can we make that we see. And the simple one would be, with this community and with this population, there are perfectly healthy produce but not taken, and tons of boxes are left over because they're not known. The community, the Native Hawaiian community, knows nothing about them. So we're going to look at health concerns. Poverty-stricken first. Poverty-stricken people, they have or may have unsanitary or unavailable housing conditions. They also may have transportation issues, which could lead to problems with seeking medical care, meeting with maintenance visits, such as getting their vaccinations or physicals each year. So that means that increases their chance of visiting emergency care. And by then, you're already at secondary, tertiary prevention level. And that could have been prevented if, therefore, they had interventions for that, which is what we're going to try and look at. Because poverty-stricken are at risk for diet-related illnesses and conditions. Poor nutrition may be due to lack of resources. Studies do show that Native Hawaiians, especially, to report having to make food shopping decisions or grocery shopping decisions based on prices. And if you're poverty-stricken, your options are not wide. Diet-related illnesses would include heart-related issues, obesity. It may show up in abnormal serum lab values such as high cholesterol and high glucose. The World Health Organization did state that chronic illness and conditions are avoidable and do improve with a healthier diet. Now we're going to look at Native Hawaiians. They are 5 times more likely to become diabetic. They are more likely to die due to cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. And once again, as you see in red, as the poverty-stricken, they are at high risk for diet-related illness also, especially with obesity, hypertension, diabetes, as mentioned earlier, and other cardiovascular risks. So if we're going to deal with poverty-stricken Native Hawaiians, now we're dealing with a whole population that has double the risk as far as diet-related illnesses and conditions. And as the World Health Organization states, that can be avoided or improved with a healthier diet. But options can be limited. So we're going to try and be creative with what we got. We're going to look at health risk on a larger scale. This has to do a lot with the fact that the cost of secondary and tertiary prevention is a lot larger than primary prevention. If we can get it to where people are having a healthier diet, exercising, getting their vaccinations, they would be in a lot healthier state than having to wait to get emergency care, which is a lot higher than, say, a physical or even just an acute visit to your primary care. So low health and maintenance causes loss of an individual income as they can't go to work, which means the family loses money, which means the community loses productivity, and it increases state and federal assistance, which puts a lot of strain on everyone, basically, nationally and even just statewide. And that would increase the more under or uninsured, which equals more strain on resources. Reasons for selecting topic. Let's look at professional first. We talked about to promote primary prevention. Ultimately, that is our goals as healthcare providers, to promote primary prevention so that we do have a healthier community. But if we do have those patients, and we do, especially with poverty-stricken Native Hawaiians, that are fall into the lines of secondary and tertiary prevention levels, we do want to find ways to intervene. So I chose this topic. I do want to decrease overall individual, familial, and communal cost. As someone who understands the strain of resources, I would like to decrease the amount that needs to be spent as much as possible. Of course, I would like to advocate for a highly at-risk population. As you'll see later, there is not a lot of research out about Native Hawaiians. Poverty-stricken, yes, but that has to deal with where they are or who they are ethnicity-wise. And poverty-stricken Native Hawaiians do not have a lot of current or even past research even. So as I said, I would like to promote research of Native Hawaiians. And as nurses, we have to be sort of like MacGyvers and figure out ways that we can use the resources we have. So I want to make sure that I utilize the wasted and affordable resources, meaning the foreign produce that the food banks, that poverty-stricken Native Hawaiians with less resources, I would like to use those vegetables to give to them to help their diet to be healthier and so on and so forth. More about that later. Of course, there's delivering culturally competent care, which is what us as nurses, holistic wise and such, and as Leininger's theory promotes. Promote healthier diet and inspiration creatively. Personal wise, I live in Waianae. I was born, raised, and living currently in Waianae in below poverty. I am a past and current food bank recipient, so I see what's going on firsthand. I know what's going on firsthand. And this is a little touchy subject because of the community I live in. Nobody really wants to talk about it out loud because of the things that happened in the past as far as statehood and such. But there is a decrease of Hawaiian culture. There are many stories of illegalizing, practicing Hawaiian culture, which would mean hula, language, and diet. So as you can see, if you live here or been around here, finding someone that can speak Hawaiian or true Hawaiian is very rare. Someone that's completely engulfed in the Hawaiian diet, even more rare. So it was deemed illegalized when post-westernized, so that they could then control Hawaii and so on and so forth. Research needs to be done on that. That's something that my tutu or elder has asked me not to go too far into because there's still a fear. There's a definite fear about talking about their culture, which is really sad. So creating more research and more interventions for them could help heal that culturally and emotionally and mentally and holistically. So with this capstone pilot project, I would like to bridge the past culture with the modern culture to show them that it can be done and that it's okay to be Native Hawaiian today. Project AIM, of course, is to ultimately, when it first began, was to just decrease the amount of leftover, wasted, healthy, fresh produce from the food bank at a Native Hawaiian community. But that's not substantial enough to say to use as research, because what would that do? So as guided, the project aim is to educate on healthier nutrition. That would include produce foreign to Native Hawaiians, to include in their traditional Hawaiian diet, which is proven to decrease obesity and cardiovascular risk. And you'll know more about that later as I go on. It just shows that, and then research shows that modern diets compared to traditional diets, not just in Native Hawaiians, have caused a lot more obesity and health issues. So if we can somehow bring Native Hawaiians, tie them back to their traditional Hawaiian diet, merge it with what they have available, it could help a lot in decreasing their health risk, diet-related health risk, and probably with their cultural issues too and identity. I do want to promote community support, as in the Hawaiian culture, food is celebrations are surrounded by food, gatherings are surrounded by food. So the Hawaii Food Bank can sometimes be looked at like a gathering. It's a family. It's all a little community. You have to go there and get a ticket and wait and stand in line and you talk to everyone, know everyone's story. So if I could go ahead and have the pilot project would promote healthy food, but also have, as you'll see and hear about later, demos of eating food that would promote community support there, and they'll kind of gather around that because they love food. And I would like to encourage Native Hawaiian practice. Of course, bring them back to their identity and merge those wounds that they have. Let them know that it's okay and it's going to be proud to be Native Hawaiian. And that the diet that they did have before was so much healthier and a lot better. And they should be proud of that. Practice site. So we have here Waianae's HCAP. HCAP meaning Honolulu Community Action Program, which doesn't sound right when they say with Waianae, so we say Waianae's HCAP. There's a room used for Hawaii Pacific University Bachelor of Science Nurses students because they come here for community clinical. I was one of them. That room was used, we used that room for this particular pilot project to educate the staff and the volunteers on the diet, the traditional Hawaiian diet, and the produce. And it would basically be a place for the students to prepare, because they also need to prepare for the population that they'll be confronted with. They'll also need to know about the traditional Hawaiian diet and all the other produce that is going to come up, and that it may be foreign to them also. There's just a lot of things that they'll need to prepare either before and after evaluating and soaking it all in. And that's basically their space. Now that space, that room, is next to an industrial kitchen that Waianae HCAP has because it was remodeled. It's beautiful. Everything's brand new and sparkling. It's great. They don't use it right now. There needs to be funding for projects like this. But that's where the recipe and food samples will be made. And as you see right here, because HCAP building is here behind this tree area and everything. This is an older picture. The Foodbank distribution is set up right next door, and you can see it's really hot. So that has to be factored in as far as if the population, the staff, the volunteers, even if the BSN students are going to want to engage enthusiastically with this capstone pilot proposal. So we're going to factor that in and try to keep it, comfortable as possible. So tents need to be set up also next to the food distribution place. That's also where the education of the participants, the food bank recipients, will take place. Food demos will be set up next to the food distribution, and recipes will be given out with each box given to the food bank recipients. The box of food given to each food bank recipients. I'm sorry, I should go on to say the recipes are about the farm produce that they may not know about, so that they can know how to cook it and so forth. So for this pilot project, I would of course like to use Islanders' cultural care theory. It definitely touches on their very careful handling and passion of culture. We are definitely dealing with a culture that has been wounded, so we want to make them feel seen, feel comfortable, because there's a lot of mistrust there. Anything that's seen as foreign or post-westernization is sort of rebuffed. Like the produce, a lot of times they may not want to eat it, or for what they tell me, they don't want to eat it because it's not Hawaiian. That's not what came from their land. I want to tell them, well, it's not as if you're eating from your land now, but that's a whole other story we have a conversation about. So I'll touch on Leininger's 3 modes and how introducing foreign produce to the Native Hawaiian community fulfills these 3 modes. So we talk about cultural care, preservations, or maintenance, and the use of the traditional Hawaiian diet in merging past and modern culture is a way how we could preserve and maintain. Also with the use of celebrating food with the demos and the recipes and the talkings and the gatherings, that's also a way of preserving the Native Hawaiian culture. So cultural care, accommodation, or negotiation. Now preparing, educating, cooking, promoting the foreign produce to the Native Hawaiians, that's a way of negotiating. Because what we're doing is we're taking that produce that's foreign to them and putting it into into their native culture, saying, hey, you could take these veggies here, our produce, fruits or veggies here, and you can merge it into your native culture and the way they eat. And it's negotiation there that's happening. It's cultural carry patterning or restructuring. Would also be, like I said, modifying the traditional Hawaiian diet to include foreign produce and other healthy food preparations. Because if those of you who don't know, pre-westernized traditional Hawaiian diet, we didn't have there weren't stoves or anything, so a lot of it was boiling, broiling, or roasting and steaming. Anything else, no. So it would be illogical for me or anyone else to tell someone to completely follow only the traditional Hawaiian preparations of food, especially when some people work 3 jobs and so forth. So we're also going to have to restructure their traditional Hawaiian diet in the way that they prepare food. So we're taking in foreign produce, and we're also introducing different ways to cook healthy wise. An example would be when I remember telling this one elder that Western vegetable oil is not healthy to cook with. And she kept telling me that I don't know, you're not making sense. I said, well, olive oil is a lot healthier and you should use fake butter and so on and so forth. And it was like I was speaking another language to her and she just didn't know. So if we can introduce those healthy food preparations also, that would go miles and miles into having a healthier community for Native Hawaiians. So this is my synthesis, or not my synthesis yet, but this is about relevant literature, and as you can see there's 3. There aren't a lot at all of Native Hawaiian research. There isn't any research about food banks or Hawaii food banks. So I'm going to start with Dr. Shintani, Beckham, and O'Connor. This was in 1991, but it's an awesome article because it deals with the traditional Hawaiian diet and how it reduced obesity and cardiovascular risk as seen through weekly weights, fasting blood, chem labs, blood pressures, and blood sugars. This was a 21-day quasi-experimental pre-post-test intervention. There were 20 convenient participants. They put out an ad, people responded. The inclusion criteria involved questions mainly about if the people conducting the study felt these participants could promote change. But it wasn't explicitly stated what the inclusion criteria was, except that they did have an interview process and so forth. I should say that there was 20 convenient participants, but towards the end of the study, 19 went through because one of them did have an illness that kind of disqualified him. So the data collection, it was a pair 2 TLT test and a 95% confidence interval between the means. So the results did show significant decrease in weight and cardiovascular risk. Majority of the labs were significant. The significant decrease. There were some labs that were decreased, but not significantly. But ultimately, it did show a significant decrease. So talk about strengths. Of course, it's culturally competent. They chose leaders that promote change, in which we know in trying to get change or promote change, we want to get to the leaders and the people that other people look up to. The weakness is a small sample size. The meals were not self-made. It was made at the Hawaiian Comprehensive Health Center. It was prepackaged. It was made and prepackaged there, so they had to go there every day for breakfast and dinner, and they could take whatever snacks and stuff from lunch home. All their stuff was measured and all that. But the point is, for the weakness, is that it wasn't self-made. It was given to them. Exact inclusion criteria not known is also a weakness, but it was a good test to show. And this was done in Waianae also, and a lot of Waianae people still talk about this test. So talking about and using the the traditional Hawaiian diet, and how Shintani had people actually lose all this weight, and she got smaller, they talk like that. She got smaller and all this, then it would help bridge that gap because they are a mistrusting group, so it's not unfamiliar to them. Next, I'm going to talk about Geller, Mendoza, Timbaland, Montjoy, and Nig. This is 2012. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not mention that informed consent and IRB approval from University of Hawaii was gotten for Shintani's study. So moving on to Geller's. IRB approval was from the University of Institutional Review Board, and informed consent was gained. The objective was to use a decisional balance sheet to promote healthy behavior amongst ethically diverse adults. They wanted to use this balance sheet basically to promote either increased physical activity or increased produce intake. So they had to use two groups, and participants were randomly chosen. It was 21 older participants were randomly chosen if they were going to be in the physical one or in the produce one. The average age was 72 years old, and they were given a $10 gift card for participation. So they were randomly inside. As far as the physical activity, the tool they used was International Physical Activity Questionnaire, or IPAQ. And for the produce intake, they used National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. And these were self-reported. The data collection and analysis for this study is not statistical because of the small size, so results were reported descriptively. Their study, or they stated for their study, that physical activity did increase, or as was self-reported, produce intake had no effect. So the strength would be that they tried to reach a diverse ethnic sample, as they had Japanese, Native Hawaiian, Caucasian, Native American, but it was still a small sample size, but they wanted to keep a diverse ethnic group. So that was the strength of theirs. And they did have valid tools. Weaknesses, the descriptive results, because of the small sample size, that's definitely a weakness. It was a short study period, 2 weeks. It's a self-reported tool, so desirable answers could be made. Socioeconomics not factored in. Okay, so now I'll move on to Duncan et al. 2014. Informed consent gained and IRB approval from Brigham Universities in Utah and Hawaii. So the objective was to explore the relationships of select demographics and BMI of Native Hawaiians or Pacific Islanders, NHOPIs. It was a descriptive correlational study. There was 364 in their sample, 155 from Utah, 209 from Hawaii. The inclusion criteria included they had to be 18 years or older, self-identified as an NHOPI, and a primary caregiver to at least one child. Their data collection, we're going to go with tools. Their tools were not explicitly stated. They did say that answers were verbally recorded, so I can't say that it was valid. But their analysis, they used IBM statistical package for the social sciences version 19, descriptive statistics, two-tailed t-tests for the BMI and the gender. Let's see, so what their results showed was that 84.3% were obese, 73% state food prices challenging, BMI and education related, meaning the higher the education, the less the BMI. But they said that BMI and income, gender, and age not related. There was no relation there from their study. The strengths, it was a large sample size. They did compare the same ethnic group in different locations, but that can also be looked at as a weakness because now you're dealing with different resources. The weakness was a tool was not stated, not valid. It was verbally reported. And also that the sample was biased. You were dealing with a lot of Brigham University like people. So when they say that BMI is directed to education but not to income, I question it, but they did the study and the analysis according to them shows it. Synthesis of literature. Little research available on Native Hawaiians, like we talked about. Native Hawaiians have higher incidence and prevalence of obesity, definitely blaring when you try to research Native Hawaiians. Modern diets are known to promote obesity, whereas traditional diets, because it was more off the land, were a lot more healthier. Accepting one healthy habit does have an increase in participating in other healthy habits. So, for example, you take someone who starts working out, next thing you know, they want to eat right, they want to start taking vitamins, and they want to start going to the gym. So we all know that one person or few. So food prices regulate food choices, perceived decreased options of healthy choices. The traditional Hawaiian diet does decrease obesity and cardiovascular risk in Native Hawaiians. Culturally appropriate tools are definitely needed. I did not state it here, but I do have it in my capstone paper, but research done with local food banks need to be done because I could not find one study that used food banks as an intervention or even to descriptively explore. Overview of other interventions. No other intervention exists to date to decrease wasted foreign produce at local food banks. Possible interventions, so you could decrease, get those foreign produce out. You could require all food bank recipients to take foreign produce. You could throw them away, which would be a waste. You could allow willing staff or volunteers recipients to take as much as they wish, so as to ensure it goes out more. Or you could donate leftover foreign produce to another local nonprofit organization, but that doesn't directly benefit the target population that I'm looking at, which is the food bank recipients in a Native Hawaiian poverty-stricken community. Current trends, needed research. Any research involving Native Hawaiians, research on exact diet of Native Hawaiians, reasons for shift in traditional to modern diet, barriers for adhering to the traditional Hawaiian diet. We need to have further research to assess possible medical benefits post-pilot study, as Shintani did with the weekly blood chem results and blood pressure and weights. But ultimately that would be the goal, but everything must be done in steps to be done right. So we're going to start with getting them to accept and take the produce. I did have a few homeless friends tell me that they don't know how they can store the produce that they get, so they don't take it anyway. So we want to explore that. Like I said, research involving Hawaiian food banks. We want to if we want to restore Native Hawaiians to the traditional diet, perhaps we could restore them to their traditional physical activity, which was, they were outside a lot. They were very fit. And the current barriers for modern Native Hawaiians in practicing Native culture. Of course, the past barriers were that it was deemed illegalized. It's no longer illegal, so everyone may have their own reason or whatever it may be. A lot of times for me it's just the fear when people talk about it, tutus and all that, and elders and all that. But the current barriers do need to be explored to why they will not engage in their Native culture. Project implementation. So my objective, as stated, to increase awareness and acceptance of produce foreign to Hawaii food bank recipients in a community with a high percentage of poverty-stricken Native Hawaiians, using Leininger's culture care theory as measured by decreased and leftover foreign produce. My design is quasi-experimental. It's a pre-post test intervention, culturally competent, using Leininger's culture care theory. My sample is non-randomized, convenient, open to all food bank recipients. The tools and implementation. I'm going to be using, of course we talked about Leininger's cultural care theory. I will be basing things off that and following that. But I will be using the traditional Hawaiian diet as a guideline, and hopefully I would like to get the dietitian from Shintani's study to use as a guide and a teacher to me, and also to the RNs and the future RNs, on how we can go about teaching and learning about the traditional Hawaiian diet and how we can merge the modern foreign produce that is available right now. Not modern foreign produce, but foreign produce available now. We'll be using food from the food bank, and also for the recipes and the demos. Cooking utilities, recipes will be printed on paper and pen for tallying and counting. And I'll talk more about that, about the data collection. It will be for 12 weeks. 6 weeks will be preparation of the BSN students, the HCAP staff, and volunteers in the classroom with the dietitian, with the nurse practitioner that's running it, and all that, to kind of go through the diet, the produce, the culture, the people, and all of that. And then the last 6 weeks will be the demo and education of recipients. This will have to be done on a Tuesday also. I do have to say, I have it in my paper, but it has to be done on a Tuesday because Tuesday is food bank days at Hawaiian's HCAP. So I propose that the community clinical for the BSN students be moved to Tuesday. My anticipated budget is explained more in my capstone paper. Is $2,900. It is cost effective. We are using resources that are available as far as students, produce, food from the food bank. So it is cost effective. $2,900. Data collection, I'll be using the IBM statistical package for the social sciences, SPSS version 19, descriptive analysis, two-tailed t-test to see any correlations, and ANOVA, ANOVA. It's a pre-post-test intervention. I will show you how that looks at the end of this presentation. So we count the weekly amount of recipients taking foreign produce starting 1 week before and 1 week after, and throughout the 12 weeks will be counted and then percentaged. Weekly amount of recipients that tried demo from the week before, meaning the weekly amount of participants that actually cooked the recipe that was given the week before, or the demo that was given the week before. That will be accounted for, tallied, and percentage wise. Weekly amount of recipients taking foreign produce after trying demo. We want to see if what works and what doesn't. For demographics, the exact is not known, as research on the poverty-stricken Native Hawaiian food bank recipients aren't, the research isn't there, so it's not exactly known. But we're dealing with 18 and over because it is on a Tuesday, so people should be in school. Mostly poverty-stricken, high percentage of Native Hawaiians. Exact demographics, as I said, is not known and should be researched. Outcomes. So there's hopefully an increase in acceptance and knowledge of foreign produce as more recipients take the produce to substitute in the traditional Hawaiian diet, and meaning having less leftover produce at the food bank. The stunning limitations and threats. Exact demographics is unknown. Possible mistrust of the population, also of the students or even the staff. Biases of population by nurses or of the target population. Weekly total recipients may change. 1 week you may have lots of people. So potential barriers to project implementation is the resistance to change, whether it be from our target population, our BSN students, the HCAP staff, or volunteers. Any which way or any part of the pilot project that people are playing, anyone that has resistance to change would put a barrier into the project implementation. Time constraints is definitely a big one here, as everything is revolving around food bank distribution. There is a little window in the morning where the student nurses could talk story and educate with the staff and volunteers and kind of go over what the educational points are going to be for that day, and then for the student nurses to click the demos and print out whatever recipes if they have not already printed that out. Have the food bank distribution in which they'll do the education with the target population, pass out the demos, give their recipes, and then have time to break down and talk story about what went wrong, what didn't go wrong, what was great, what wasn't, kind of evaluate, go through the whole AdPi process, because let's not forget we're nurses here. Lack of cultural skills is definitely, or at least cultural sensitivity is going to be a potential barrier. Native Hawaiians can be very mistrusting, as with any small culture that feels wounded or feels misunderstood. They can be mistrusting. So being culturally sensitive and also being self-aware of any biases that you may have, you work through them in your head, you recognize them beforehand or even during. You know, we all have those biases and stereotypes. You recognize them and you work through them. So that's going to be, or maybe something new for the student nurses, and it may not be, but it will probably be something new for the target population to work through their issues with the different ethnicities of the students or socioeconomic status that they may appear to be. There might be some mistrust there and a potential barrier for the project. Lack of teamwork is going to be a big one, as Native Hawaiians are definitely a social group. They enjoy gatherings and talking story, laughing and sharing, and anyone that may be an introvert or shy is going to put a hinder into relating to the Native Hawaiians, as that's not part of their culture. Funding will be a potential barrier if there is lack thereof. The nurse practitioner role, we are looking at the nurse practitioner role as an educator. He or she will be educating the BSN students on time management, planning. We're going to go through the whole ADPI thing again, but on a community level, as it will be their community clinical, and also on a cultural level. Therapeutic communication and cultural sensitivity. They are going to, or he or she is going to educate the HCAP diet changes that are needed, which will include the produce that is foreign to their community, healthy meal preparation, and the traditional Hawaiian diet, and how all of that can merge together to now become part of their modern diet, modern culture. Same thing with the target population. The nurse practitioner will be educating the target population on the foreign produce, healthier meal prep, the traditional Hawaiian diet, and how they can all play together to merge between past and modern, and they'll be a lot more healthy indeed. The nurse practitioner will be a facilitator, in which he or she will facilitate healthier dieting, cultural care. In the pilot project, she or she will be the one that will make sure that pushes through what needs to be done, what's not being done, and so forth. And lastly, but not least, of course, is the advocate, in which a lot of us have, including myself, gotten into healthcare for. It's an advocate for the at-risk population, whether it be lack of knowledge, lack of resources, high resistance to changing, whatever it may be. Seeing someone who needs help or someone who's at risk, and when there are answers or creative ways to work around it, it seems, as nurses or as a nurse practitioner, the role is to advocate for the at-risk person to help bridge that gap between what have and what have not. Definitely advocate for the health, like I said, at the at-risk persons, the families, and the communities, which is what we're looking for with this pilot project, what I am looking for with this pilot project, as we're going to be helping the individual, which is part of a family, which is then also part of a community, which is like the population of the poverty-stricken Native Hawaiian Foodbank recipient. That is a family, that is a population, and that is a community. And those people will then take those food home and whatever they have learned and whatnot home back to other people, and then can only hope it will grow. But more research needs to be done to prove that. So in summary, diet-related health illnesses highly affect poverty-stricken and affect Native Hawaiians. So when you're dealing with poverty-stricken Native Hawaiians, then they're highly at risk for diet-related diseases. Diet-related health illnesses do improve with a healthier diet, as stated by the World Health Organization. The traditional Hawaiian diet decreases diet-related illnesses and conditions, as shown through the Shintani diet. But modern Native Hawaiians do have access to their local food bank and to produce, but it's foreign to them, and they don't take it. So somehow substituting the available foreign produce into the traditional Hawaiian diet can encourage Native Hawaiian acceptance, because it's making it a part of their culture. A culturally competent educational pilot project may increase knowledge and acceptance of foreign produce and decrease leftover foreign produce at local food banks. So after all that we've gone through, we've got here, what do you think? We have the traditional Native Hawaiians. As you can see, as I spoke about earlier, food, if you think about Leininger's cultural care theory and what they value, food gathering and social gatherings, talking story, is a high value of Native Hawaiians. So you can see that in traditional times, they may have had healthy food, it all came from the land and whatnot. So now in modern times, when resources are limited and post-westernization, they were succumbed to jobs of servitude and not afforded, I guess, a healthier diet, but afforded more of a cheaper diet, which would be canned foods and whatnot. To keep up with their traditions under the radar, of course, would be the gathering around the food, but the food that they could afford or that was given to them was no longer what they were used to, or was it healthy. So now we were dealing with a new culture of Hawaiians, Native Hawaiians. And what we would like to do is merge them two, because we're not going to get back to this place here, but we don't want to be in a place where it's not healthy. These are my references here. Before I conclude, I do want to show my pre and post test survey here. So I have here, this is part of my capstone paper, efficacy of educational program about, produce foreign to Native Hawaiians and the traditional Hawaiian diet. It's going to be based on the Likert scale, 5 points, 0 to 5, 0 being not at all, and 5 being confidently yes. First question, know the fruits out of my native culture you've been at the food bank. Willing to take the fruits out of my culture at the food bank. Eat the fruits at the culture at the food bank. Kind of goes on and talks about the vegetables after that. Let's see. And then it'll say, I know different recipes of the fruits and vegetables out of my culture given at the food bank. I know how to prepare and cook in different healthy ways. I am learning more about foreign produce, healthy preparing and cooking from this educational program. I know about the traditional Hawaiian diet, how to incorporate foreign produce, share what I learn with others, and that's the hopes that will happen there, because it is a sharing culture. And lastly, this educational program and its facilitators respected me and my culture, as we are respecting Leininger's cultural care theory and keeping in the fact that this design is a culturally competent, culturally sensitive, quasi-experimental design. And this is where they would sign. The weakness would be, as stated earlier, that each week the number of recipients may change. So one person may show up mid-week or mid-project, but they will need to, because it's their first time there, they will need to sign an informed consent. And IRB approval will be needed from HPU. If there are any questions, you can email me at mmagall1@my.hpu.edu. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Aloha, kako.